hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success talk show. It is your girl, Rochelle, affectionately called Slay Queen Hemingway, and I am your host for this evening show. So, you know what time it is. Go ahead and put it into the comments. Let us know where you're streaming in from, and let us know like how you feeling, all right? Because we just want to know. I'm just a little bit nosy, and I'm always interested in what people are doing. And so I am the CEO and founder, y'all, of Slay to Success, which is a leadership and transformational consultant service business, and I'm empowering women. Hey, Todd from San Antonio. He left for San Antonio this morning very early because we saw the post. Todd. All right, so welcome here tonight. Hope that you got some rest. And so I empower women who are transitioning after 20 years or more of military service, who are struggling a little bit with rediscovering your identity, maybe your sense of purpose, mindset, maybe your self-leadership. And I offer a 90-day transition to transformation program. Individuals, I do 30-day workshops and power hours, mentorship. I also have an all-women empowerment events. And I just love what I do. I am a speaker. I am an author of the book titled Slay to Success. And I am also a 30-year United States Air Force veteran. And so the purpose of this talk show is to highlight men and women who have a life of service, and they are on their own terms, and they're using the slay, S-L-A-Y, you know what it means, to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point and to impress greatly, and to dream and work hard until you own it. And they have this mindset because they want to positively impact the world. All right, so we're going to, stay ready, be ready, lead out loud, a sense of family, a sense of community, and you know you are built to last. So let's just welcome in our guest, our audience tonight, right? We got Kim from Northern VA. Welcome, my sister. Thank you for being here and joining us tonight. And then we have Dwayne on LinkedIn. Good evening, and thank you for being here and dropping the comments in. So, as we know, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping, okay? So I'll just make sure that we have these banners up here. So if you are just coming on in, making sure you tell us your name and where you're tuning in from as you pop in and out. And also, I just want to share with you all, I have a Rediscover Your Confidence workshop that is coming up starting on the 2nd of August to the 23rd of October, not August, y'all, October. All right. And it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday night. It is a group setting. We have 4 sessions. And so there's a QR code if you want to scan that and you want to join us. We would love to have you there. So we've got that all out the way. We know what we're here to do. I want to make sure that you share, subscribe, and you are liking. Okay? Share, subscribe, and like. Go over to my YouTube channel, y'all, making sure that you put those subscribers and you'll get the notifications when this show and any other video that I drop comes online. So here's the deal, y'all. Okay? Here's the deal. I want to just start out to say this. We're going to have a super exciting, slay-mazing conversation with my Air Force sister, retired Mary Polanco. Now, she is in the building, all right? So let me, before we move on, y'all, making sure, #live, hey, Jay, how you doing tonight? And then Sharice is here. Good afternoon, good evening. It is evening, my queen. Welcome to the Slaves to Success talk show. So let me just read a little bit about who Mary is, just so y'all just know, okay? She is the founder and CEO of Live and Lead Well. It's a visionary company, y'all, with the goal of igniting personal growth, awareness, insight, and support on a global scale. She is also an author, experienced leadership trainer, and a transformational speaker. Mary leans into her passion for resilience as a certified trainer for the resilience building leadership program and as an emotional intelligence coach. She has helped countless people through her authentic, compassionate approach and continues her dedication to serving others through her outreach in multiple online forums. All right, so we've got so many people here with us tonight. Hey, Glow, welcome on in. Hey, Vanity. I just saw Vanity in person at the Air Force Ball. So thank you all for being here. Let me add my sister here to the stage. How are
Hello,
you?
hello.
What's going on?
Oh my goodness, your intro about your very first thing you say, I'm like, I need to get that on recording and play it every morning. This is like a great way to wake up.
Yeah, it's like, this energy. It's the newfound energy that we have. And look, y'all, we are sisters from another mister because we didn't even say what we were wearing, but we got the puffy sleeves on and it is pink. All
That's right.
right. Cause she like Mary's like, I know. Like,
I know.
okay, so the audience know Mary and I met online. Okay. We didn't know each other when we were serving in the military. It was not until like at the tail end that I see her on like Facebook and LinkedIn. And I was like, I got to know this girl. Like, I don't know. And then we found out that we lived close to one another.
Yes.
And then we had lunch in person.
Yes.
And then from then on, we've been on several different things together. And here recently, we sat on a speaker panel for AFA.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. Like attracts like, right?
It sure does. So, like, tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you live, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Yes. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. This is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the show. I'll get into that a little bit later, how in real time you've changed my life as I'm watching. So thank you for that. Yes, Mary Polanco, 2022, excuse me, I retired from the Air Force out of the Pentagon. My last job was in the resilience office. I goodness, I said I joined back in the 1900s, so it's been a minute. But I came in security forces, did medical, did some instructing in PME, lots of different jobs. But retirement was ready, and it was time for me. And after 23 years, we decided to stay local. So we live in Maryland. We bought our house right before I retired, so it was like a perfect transition as far as that goes. We let's see, after that I did some contract work in the leadership development space and decided to launch my own company. And so I did that with Live and Lead Well. That's been so much fun, and I know we'll talk more about that. But let's see, I'm married to a tennis instructor. I do not play, as shameful as that is. um, he's always telling me, you can just get on my Calendly and we'll get this thing going. I'm like, I know. And we have two kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, keeps us nice and busy. And then behind me, I have two sort of great passions in my life. This one over here is crafting. I'm a hobby crafter, and I have a great community on YouTube, which is super fun. And then this is my personal development space. So two loves. That's a little bit about me. Pausing.
Yeah, so we had an event. I actually put on an event downtown DC, and let me tell y'all, Mary was there, and someone came up to her and said, "Hey, are you Mary Polanco, like the crafter on YouTube?" And I was like,
You did.
I didn't know. Look, I had no idea Mary was like this, like superstar. I was like, oh, let me go check this out. And I go look. I'm like, how many subscribers you got on YouTube?
40,000.
40,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you love crafting,
Yes.
okay, then I'm gonna need you to go over there and into the YouTube and follow Mary because she drops videos in there and people are just so super excited about what she creates. And I
Yeah.
love it.
That was so funny. And you should I wish I could have been had like the inside of my brain recorded because when she came up to me, because I was in a different world and space at that moment, and then she's like, "Are you this Mary Polanco?" And I was like, "Wait, that's my craft channel. I'm so confused." Yeah.
You know what? That goes to show you that you never know who you're impacting and influencing and who's watching your stuff.
Yeah.
You just don't know, right?
No,
And so that was for me, I was like, that is amazing.
that was fun.
That was fun. And like Chevy says, and welcome Chevy. It's great to have multiple passions, and that is something that we're going to speak to tonight because I think that's so important, especially y'all, those that are serving in some like high, like um, pressured or performing jobs, and you need an outlet. Like everyone needs an outlet, and you need to find that and like get into it when you can. So, okay, Mary, tell us a little bit about your transition from the military and what you have learned in this process.
Oh my goodness, what a journey. So it's been such a journey. It's interesting. I share a lot about my journey very openly in that. And I think one of the things that maybe I don't specify too much, but the truth is that about a year and a half, my transition started. Actually, that's not, I would say probably 2 years. And what I mean started, I believe that there's a point in everyone's career, specifically or especially if you're retirement, working towards retirement, that there's sort of this tug at you of, do I want to keep doing this? So it's a quiet tug because in the
Mhm.
midst of everything going on in your career at that time, we often just maybe feel it, hear it, and then we suppress it because we got other stuff we got to do.
Right.
And so I feel like that was happening about 2 years prior. And then getting closer and closer, and this not even realizing I was going to retire at 23 years, I started to really, I fell heavily into a deep depression and massive anxiety. And when I was healing and reached out for help and climbing up out of that, I got really clear on a lot of things. And so, in that clarity, I believe that was really my catalyst for understanding my next step in life. And that was
Yeah.
towards retirement. And so, I say that because my transition really started heavily a solid year before I even retired. And it was me for the last year really seeing things differently that I had ever had before in my career of my priorities,
Yeah.
what mattered to me, where I was putting my energy, and letting go of a lot of the trauma and hurt, working through the trauma and hurt, things like that. So yeah, so I that's the first thing I want to share is sort of like when it started for me was way before I actually retired.
So you mentioned that you had some anxiety, like at when did you notice and what kind of symptoms did you have? Like, was there any particular incident or was it just everything?
No, there. So I believe now in hindsight, I had been suppressing anxiety symptoms for the last 6 years of my career, at least six
Mm.
years. But it wasn't until they started manifesting physically, where it was really my like knock at the door. So when I say manifest physically, it was when I was in I was working on the Hill for a year in a fellowship program. The moment I would get on the train to go in, which is an hour ride, to the moment I got off the train to come home, I had heart palpitations, inability to get a deep breath, worry all the time, just kind of shaky, nervous, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
that was pretty much all day, every day. And that was my first bout with physical symptoms of it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what anxiety is so much more than that,
Yeah.
for people who suffer from it, and it's different for everybody, you know.
It is. It really is. I noticed there was a couple of incidences that occurred for me towards the end of my career as well, where other people noticed it was anxiety for me, but I wasn't recognizing it for myself.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't stop and pay attention
No.
and really listen to our bodies and the warning signs. until it's too late.
Right. And I am so grateful for, well, the reason it all bubbled up to the surface was because I was in the fellowship program. Had I still maintained my superintendent ops tempo, I think I just it would have taken a little bit longer for it to happen. And maybe it wouldn't have happened until I had a serious illness from
Right.
it or something like that. But um, when it's truly, that was a gift. At the time, it didn't feel like a gift because I couldn't escape to my normal coping mechanism of being the Cape Crusader to sit, help airmen and serve this and do that and stay busy. I didn't have any of that. It was just me on the train. And so it was all kind of bubbling up to the surface that had been there
Mm.
for years. But it was like, no, I have things to do. We'll do that when I go on leave. We'll take care of that when this happens. No, never did.
Yeah. So, for our audience, thank you all for being here. And, we're talking a little bit about, self care, and really understanding who you are and kind of watching out for yourself. And so, Marion and I have a very similar type of mission and purpose, where we are in the spaces of leadership, mindset, and wellness. Like we sit in this, and so we can be here for a minute. So tell us a little bit on your perspective or on leadership. Like what about leadership do you like get on your soapbox about that you're like learn over the time since you were like a leader in the Air Force up until now?
Just one thing? No.
I know.
Um,
Well, no, we can do several things.
no, I know. So I think I'm actually going to share and start off with my greatest revelation.
Okay.
My greatest revelation about leadership is that it 100% starts with you. So we have, and this is really part of the reason why I created the company in the way that I did, live and lead well,
Mm-hmm.
because I really saw as a certified, experienced leadership trainer, so much good curriculum out there, but the majority of it talks about how we interact and treat others. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about empathy and emotional intelligence towards others and all of these great things, and they are 100% necessary. But where's the training for personal development? Where's the training where we look inward, where we're introspective and we're reflective, where we encourage journaling? Like, I didn't see it. I never got it when I was in the
I
military.
didn't either.
No, it was kind of maybe glossed over in
Yeah.
certain things,
Yeah.
but so really I believe that the moment I turned everything else off and said, you know what, I'm going to devote time to knowing who I am and understanding who I am, I had a realization that I was a good leader in the Air Force. I cared about my people, all of those great things, but I was leading with one hand tied behind my back. And had
Mm.
I had done what I do now, then it would have been completely different.
Right.
And so that's really my greatest revelation about leadership is we could put our cape on all day, every day for other people. But if we want to be impactful, great leaders, we got to be great to ourselves first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you say this, and I'm like, yes, like I agree with you
You are.
100%, right? But what is it that you think that prevents people from doing that? Because we know from our experience, from many years of being in the military, that some people just don't buy into this.
Mm-mm.
You know,
No.
so
Yeah.
I mean, like, what would be like the like the what do you call it, like an argument, if you will? What would be the argument as to why you should start with you first?
What's the argument? Well,
you
I
know
think, yeah, that's a great question. I think the conversation has to be the conversation with that. Let's imagine I'm having this conversation with one individual, would be I'd kind of kick it off with questions about their own fulfillment and their own, are they living the life they envisioned? Are they living peace? Are they living in joy? Are they,
Mm,
what is their definition of success look like that? Because likely someone who is resistant to this totally get it. I was she.
Yep.
um, Likely they haven't even looked at those questions. They haven't even thought about how I can dissect who I am at the core. We have been conditioned from day one to serve others before ourselves,
Right.
literally in a core value.
Yeah.
So I would understand and meet them with the greatest amount of grace, because
Yeah.
that is a hard thing to acknowledge. Of this can't you can't, it can't possibly help me to not do one of the 50 things on my to-do list and to sit in silence for 5 minutes.
Right.
That can't possibly, how counterproductive
Yeah.
is that, right?
Because
So
we're supposed to be busy. We're supposed to be doing stuff.
we are conditioned to think if you are not moving, you are failing.
Mm-hmm.
And so really there's a lot of analogy, there's a lot of old adages you can use, but if you really think about it, one of my favorites is the two guys chopping wood, and every 15 minutes the one guy leaves while the other one keeps chopping wood. He leaves for 15 minutes and comes back, and he
Mm-hmm.
keeps doing this. And when he's coming, all of a sudden the guy who leaves every so often has more wood cut than the other guy. He's like, man, how are you doing this? He's like, I go and I sharpen my knife or my axe.
Yeah.
like like that is the greatest illustration of taking that time for yourself and investing in you and really uncovering the things that you want to be doing with your life so you can
Yeah.
find true fulfillment. That has you show up entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, for both of us, because and y'all, me and Mary have been on different platforms, different levels of leadership, teaching, facilitating, and so forth. And so, when you went out and you just started to like live differently, like set up your life in a different way,
Yeah.
like what kind of pushed you in that direction? Is it because of the military service, or is this something that you always wanted to do, or it was just like, okay, I'm going to do it after I retire? Like, how did you get to this point and become like the founder of Live and Lead and Well, Lead Well? So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's all part of the journey of life, not to be cliche, but like, I know, bear with me, but like the how did I get to this? I got to this because I started doing the authentic thing first, and this led me to my purpose. And so, and I know this probably resonates with you as well, but I honestly, when I was healing and having all of these revelations and like, oh my gosh, this isn't in alignment with my values anymore. And this isn't how I think. This is how I've been taught to think. Like all of these things started opening up. Therapy was helping, all the work I was doing, reading. And when I started to do that, I started to share it online. I
mm-hmm.
started to share it on the Wingman outreach page, my
Yep.
page, LinkedIn. And I was not doing that for anyone else to read it. I was doing that truly as a healing part of my journey. Like this might help somebody, so I'm going to put it out there, but my goodness, does it feel good to stand in it, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started to do that, I started to get this flood of response of just like, oh my God, this resonates so much with me. This is exactly how it is for me. Like all of these things. And I was like, okay, let me listen some more.
Yeah.
And it really just started to kind of guide me down this path of connection
Yep.
and the power of the share and what that can do for people's healing. And that sort of just step by step led me to this point. And this is like, I even know this is the greatest part too. I don't know if this is how you feel, but I even know the part that I'm at in my life right now is still just the beginning,
Yeah.
you know?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way because I really didn't see myself anywhere what we're doing in the cards at all. I
Yeah.
just thought, well, I was going to retire, get into a job, you know, ride that out for 10 years or so, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And really, when you say that something was tugging, I felt the tug that that's not what your purpose is to do.
Yeah.
That is not what you're supposed to be doing, right? And so the more that we find our passions and what we do, and the more that we get comfortable with that, the better we feel. I mean, I feel great. I feel absolutely amazing. So, your passions, speak to us a little bit about, let's talk about the crafting and how that came to be.
Oh my goodness. So this is this is actually hilarious. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I was stationed in England and I was single. I had no kids. I was bored. I know, in England, right? I was working all the time and I just had no life. And I remember asking a friend of mine, hey, so what can I do? I need a hobby. And she's like, hey, we're going to this crafting party where we make cards. And I was like, what am I, 70? I'm not going. Like, at this point, I was like 27, right? I wanted to go
Yeah.
out. So they're like, fine, just scoff at it, whatever. So I went there, fell in love with it. In 2016, I was moving a lot because that was back in 2009. I was moving a lot and I thought, my social pillar is really suffering. So I wonder if I created a community that, even if albeit small, if they can just travel wherever I go. So this way I have a community of crafty friends and we share projects and whatnot. And then if I PCS, they go with me. So it's just ideal. And so I did that and I loved it. It has been my outlet ever since. It's the most wonderful group of people. The community is great. I barely ever get a troll. Like, because I'm not about attracting trolls, okay? Like,
Right.
that
That's
is not
yeah.
how we're living. No.
No.
But yeah, it's just been great. And quite honestly, it's been also since 16, I've been able to build up a little bit of it, monetizing it.
Yeah.
And so that's been, I learned about affiliate money and YouTube ad revenue and things like that. And so it has built up, a little bit of a side hustle, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. I actually, and also I'm like your biggest advocate in the world for greeting cards. Just to get something that's not junk mail and to have it old fashioned, with the sign it and fill it out, and plus I hand make them. Like, it's just great. I love it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Again, it's that passion that you have that kind of drives you. I
Yeah,
mean, and if you're making a little bit of money, multiple streams of incomes, like, I ain't mad at you. That's what this life can be,
yeah.
you know?
I'm at
Uh,
9 now, so
do what?
I'm at 9
You have
streams.
9 multiple streams of income?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm at
Like,
9 now.
y'all, she is like, you need to do a whole masterclass on how to get these multiple streams of income.
Well, I'm trying to get each of them very lucrative. Then it'll be like, this is where, right? That's the goal. That's where we're going.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So tell an entrepreneur, like someone who's starting out,
Yeah.
like, give us some advice. What would you share with them?
Well, I would, because I do this. This is advice I take for myself
Hmm.
because the entrepreneur road is windy. It's very windy,
And
and there's
Steve,
some hills in your way.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and I would say, before you start into this, write a vision out for what you want to do with it. What is your big dream goal? What is the thing that you really want the most? Um, because you'll want to revisit that. And there's going to be times because entrepreneur work, there's no, unless you're established, which you're all got to start somewhere, right? But
Hmm.
there's no continuity, there's no prediction in income until you're established, really. I've had months that blew my active duty pay all out the water.
Oh yeah.
And right. And then I've had months where I was breaking even. So it's, that's the part of it. So I would say, if you really truly do not want to work for anyone else and you want to be your own boss, then go back to your vision on those days where you trying to update your resume on USA Jobs, right? Because truth be told, there has been, I haven't actually done it, but there has been some days where I'm like, just do a quick search and see what
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like, and I don't discount the possibility in the future if something is in alignment with me. I won't discount that, but I will be very clear on the reasons behind me doing it, versus my old way of thinking, which was, what's the next? What's the next thing? How do I get the next job? And yeah, it's a paycheck. And no, I don't live like that anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I would say that's probably one of my biggest pieces of advice is be clear on why you're doing it. And because you're going to want to revisit that.
Yeah. So yeah, the why is so important.
Yeah.
And as you said, it is can be windy, it can be steep, and it could be dark. It could be
Yeah.
all the things. So
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. But I'm a little bit biased. I think those that have served in the military and have gotten to a certain point, a level of leadership, like entrepreneurship, is like an easier thing to maneuver through.
Yeah.
And so it requires discipline, which we know a lot of,
Yeah.
and hard work and focus and
Self
grit,
belief. It takes
self
self
belief.
belief. Yeah.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
share with the audience a little bit about self belief
Yeah.
and kind of ways that like maybe some strategies you use,
Yeah.
or you know where does that fall sometimes for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by how much words matter. And I'll share a little something about something I discovered during all of my I still read all the time, but this one period of time I was reading books from all different genres just to get new information. I was trying to get out with the old, in with the new. And there was one book I read, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and I was like blown away. I had discovered that my money blueprint, I had written my, everyone has a money blueprint, and I had written my money blueprint when I was a kid. And it said, make enough just to get by and be grateful. And that is exactly what I did my entire adult life. And I had no idea that this stemmed from a place where I grew up modestly, I would say. I always had everything I needed, not always what I wanted, right? But I remember this stigma attached to rich people when I was growing up. Oh, they're
Mm.
stingy, they're snobby, they're greedy. There was just this, and it wasn't like people said that flat out, but you can pick up things, as
Oh
you're
yeah.
growing up. And so I was like, because I value connection and relationships, I never wanted to be viewed as someone like that. So I put my money blueprint on autopilot to say, just make enough and be happy. And this was a humongous revelation for me because once I realized that, the power of awareness, I just completely blew it up. And I was like, nope, that's not. So words matter. I never say I can't afford that. I never say that. I say I'm not willing to put the money towards that at this time.
Right.
Right. I don't ever use the verbiage like I can't do that. That'll never work for me.
Mm-hmm.
They can do it, but I can't. Those things have been eradicated from my vocabulary, right? I don't know how to do that. Gone. I'm still learning how to do that. You could
Yep.
say, right? So it's really just about finding the affirmation in what you're doing and what you're learning on this journey and stepping into that and really acknowledging that we have had some pretty strong limiting beliefs coming up. And we've done it all through, we've had them through our careers, especially as enlisted, especially as women, right? I mean, like there has been some things placed upon us that we believed,
Yeah.
and it's completely false.
Yeah.
And so what I recommend in this space is remind yourself of who you really are. And if you have to do it on a daily, do it on a daily in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
And affirm who you are. That's what I practice that every day.
Yeah. Oh man, I just love it. Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
the money mindset thing. All right. Because I'm still working through mine because of the military, you know? And when we talk about money, sometimes it gives you hives and
Mhm.
makes you uncomfortable, all right? Because we got a steady paycheck, we knew where our money was coming from. And then you retire and you're like, well, I got to get back into a system that speaks to that because that's what I'm comfortable with,
Yeah.
and realizing that was something that you really needed to like. I mean, and it took me a minute to really figure out my relationship with money. And so, I think everybody who's been in these sort of environments who, after you get out, you have to figure that out. And then the self-limiting beliefs, because, I've had imposter syndrome just creep up into me and get into positions. I'm like, what am I doing in here? Like, I'm not supposed to be here. you know? And then you realize, like, yeah, you are more than qualified. You're more than qualified, right? And so you were supposed to be there. And Dwayne, it puts up here because he is so powerful. He's I think he did 41 or 42 years in service. But he's saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And that's absolutely right. These are words or affirmations that we should just really be able to pour into ourselves when we think we're not good enough, or we're not worthy, or we shouldn't have, we can't do. So I love that, as you had that, like, that awareness.
Yeah, and don't discount don't discount the discovery of where these things come from, because it's really important to understand that piece as well, because if you ignore that, it may keep showing up for you. So
Mm,
if it's cultural, if it's the house that you grew up in, and you're still exposing yourself to that mindset all the time, but you're not aware that that's actually making a barrier for you, like, you have to
right.
really give credence to this. Like, this is real. This stuff is from childhood. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, as childhood is definitely shapes our thoughts and our actions,
Yeah.
and what we do. And sometimes we just have to be able to just, sit down and really write stuff out and think about what are the stories that we're saying to ourselves? What's the narrative?
Yes.
All right. And we have to change it into the one that we want to see
Mm-hmm.
for our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so you've got live and lead well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And out of that, you facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about some of the things that you have been able to do um, with your company so far.
Great. Yes. So a couple things. I either team up with other companies and do collaborations where I could be a subcontractor for them and go out and do facilitation of leadership training, professional growth training, things like that. I go out solo on my own and do workshops, emotional intelligence workshops in the leadership or leadership professional development space. I do coaching as well. Emotional Intelligence 2.0 has an assessment where it's very individualized, and it's one of the best assessments I've ever seen. But you can do that in a different realm of, like, personal leadership or team. And so I coach people through that. And there's tons of discovery happening right in front of my face, which is like one of the greatest gifts ever, because emotional intelligence is so underrated, in my opinion. I mean, we're getting there, but it's just amazing.
Hmm.
So I do that. And I just started taking on clients for transition coaching as well. So those folks who have, like, at this point, it's people who have been in for, like, retirement eligibility, and do some coaching on the transition out. So that's been something new that I've added as well. But yeah, so that's what my company does. Also seminars. So not so much always workshops, but like,
Hmm.
I go out and do resilience talks, 1 to 1.5 hours of resiliency, share my story, and really connect with the audience in such meaningful ways. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because it's, again, we are set in such alignment that I mean, I think that this is passion work that
Mhm.
we are doing, hard work, if you will, um, of really just truly trying to figure out how to unveil a human being.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and being able to equip people with the right strategies, tools, and techniques so that they can be the best version of themselves wherever they go.
Yeah.
Todd's in here and he's saying he lives every second of the day by Why Not Me for almost 20 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I know he wrote his book about, and it is titled Why Not Me.
Yeah. Yeah. He had that mindset for a long time, right? I think that's what
Yeah,
he's saying.
yeah, I think he is.
Yeah. I
So
know.
So tell us about your newest project of your book.
Gosh, it's first thing in full transparency. I understand why people quit writing a book.
Oh
I mean, it is like it is a labor of love.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So okay. So I had this is fun for me because I had a book that I have been writing up here for a very long time, and it wasn't military specific. And I wrote half of it, and then I stopped, and I think it was really part just therapy for me as well
Yeah.
during it. But I put that on hold, and I couldn't figure out why because I'm a pretty ambitious person. I couldn't figure out why I wouldn't want to finish this book until one day I was sitting in my kid's pickup line for school, and there was this jolt in me that said, "Nope, right now your job is to write this transition book." And I was like, "Oh, well, let me pick at that a little bit. What does that mean?" And it was the most unspoken thing about military transition, and that is the psychological and emotional toll that happens,
Mm-hmm.
and that process for us. And so I pulled out a piece of paper that second. I wrote an entire outline for the book.
Yep.
I sat down and took 2 months every single morning. I'll share my strategy for writing a book too if you're interested.
Yes, please, because we got some book writers here in the
Yeah.
audience,
Okay, I'll get
and
to that in a
who've
second.
already written books. So yes,
Yeah.
share,
But
share.
I wrote for 2 straight months, got it done, and then I hired an editor. And when I matched with my editor, she was a Canadian citizen. And my very first instinct was like, ooh, she's not gonna get it. Like, oh, I was hesitant. And then I was like, nope, Mary, there is a reason for everything. Meet her first and figure it out. And I cannot tell you, Rochelle, what a blessing she was. She was to have that outside perspective that I never would have considered. Has been incredible. So I'm finished editing. I'm doing the final touches on some things. I am prepped for a Veterans Day launch. I'm so excited about it. And really, um, this book dives into the real stuff, the raw stuff, the
Right.
truth. I'm fully aware that there are some sections that just won't resonate. There are some areas where you got to be in a place to be ready to receive it before you can really digest it. And I totally understand that. But when the person who needs that section reads that section, I know it's going to help.
Yeah.
And really, the whole purpose behind this was, I ended my career out of the resilience office. I know what the suicide rates are. I know what the veteran suicide rates are. My whole purpose was if one person picks up this book and just knows they are not alone in their
Mm,
transition from the service, I have done my job.
yeah.
And so that's really the meaning behind it for me. I'm so excited about it.
So did you? So you said you wrote 2 months straight,
Yes.
and then just said, "Hey, get an outside reader to read it
Mhm.
and to edit and to
Yep.
do all those things."
Yep.
And as you were saying, like there's some things in there that people might not, like get. Um, give us a preview. Like tell us a little bit.
Like one of the things somebody
One
might
of
not.
the things. Just
Okay.
give us a little tea.
I don't use this word in the book, but some people aren't ready to admit that there's been systems in place during their career to sort of brainwash and condition us into certain aspects of our behavior. Some people won't be ready to accept that. They'll say, no, not for me. I had full control over everything. And I'm not going to dispute that for them. That's everybody has their own truth. But what the message is underneath that is the acknowledgement that there are some things, especially staying 20 plus years, there are some things that you adapted yourself to, either to survive, to
Mm-hmm.
feel good about yourself, to have worth. You fell into the systematic pressures. I did. I know I did.
Oh, we all did. Oh,
Um,
I can admit I did.
I
I was,
know. I
yeah.
think a large majority of us really did, and so much so that in the book I admit that I those people who didn't those people who were very clear on their boundaries and were very clear on their priorities, and their priority was not to work as hard as me, I judged them hard.
Yeah.
You're not all in, then you need to
Yeah.
step aside.
Right.
That is toxic and it's divisive. And those are some of the things that I talk about in the book, is acknowledging that for yourself, because one of the things I encourage and one of the things that set me free, Rochelle, was my self-forgiveness. The fact that I acknowledged that I was part of that system, that I was part of the pressure cooking, that I created division based on who I thought was showing up in the same way I was. And then I acknowledged that and I forgave myself for that. And I
Hmm.
knew that I did, and I wanted to talk about it. That's why it's in
Yeah.
the book. I want to talk about it because there's freedom in that, in acknowledging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be really deep. That's going to be something that somebody might go, I'm
Hmm.
not sure,
Yep.
but it is a system. It, it's a
Yeah.
system.
It is a
And
system.
it serves a specific purpose, right?
And
Military
yep.
service is to go to war. I mean that is the end of all being for military setting.
Yep.
But in there are certain things that are set up so that way you are telling people, especially when you get in senior leader positions, like, you not all in,
Yeah.
like, you're not going to get this strat over here, or
No.
you're not going to get this promotion,
Yep.
head nod, or whatever the case may be. And that could definitely harm other people in ways that you don't really understand or get to
Well,
see.
right. And I think that is what I want people to understand. I don't care if you pick up my book and you plan on doing another 10 years. You're going
Hmm.
to find something in there that's going to help you start designing the life that you want to live. Even if you're still in active duty, that's
Right.
fine.
Right.
But I think, listen, I think that's what it is. It's the acknowledgement that the system is set up for a very specific reason. Yet we have kind of grabbed onto some of those things where we felt, well, maybe it's not really like that. Maybe it's not meant to be like. Maybe they do care about us first. Maybe they, and it's not, I'm not disparaging, you're talking bad about the military service. I'm just saying, once you realize, it's like listen, it's like dating somebody and they're like, no, it's all you. And then you find out they're on the side with somebody else. You're like, wait a second. If you would
What
have
we
just
doing
told,
here?
yeah, if you would have just told me flat out from the front, like, hey, I'm not going to be exclusive, then I'll make my own choice, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So I feel like a lot of that happens in military service, especially the longer you stay in, because you get really wrapped up in what is being asked of you in order to show that you're worthy.
Yeah.
And so that gets lost. It gets lost that, wait a second, the first number one priority is defense of the nation, right? Like, that's the number one priority. You got to find your number one priority, or you're going to
Mhm.
get lost in the shuffle,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about here.
Well, we talk about a whole lot of things. So we went from the book, and then that's where we originally started at. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about, like, mindset. Okay, like, your mind is set up in a certain way. Like, you're really driven and you're purposeful,
Mhm.
right? You have goals. You have, you just told me anyway, and told us on the panel that you started your doctoral degree. And so it's like, so, like, where is this coming from?
Um, so I want to be, I always want to be, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. What we see someone doing and going after, it's nothing's perfect. Nothing is without its struggle.
Yes.
I was everybody watching, I was sharing with Rochelle before we started that my first week in my doctoral program, I had a little cry session on the couch. I was feeling really overwhelmed. And I think that where it comes from for me is the main thing that I was able to, first of all, I have to stop and give myself grace, and I have to stop and remind, because there are days, because I'm not in that rat race anymore, and because I don't have that accolade coming at me, because I
Mhm.
didn't volunteer for the top 3 thing where everyone could say how great I was, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have that EPR, I don't have that external validation, and I don't ever want that again. I want my validation. I have to turn inward a lot and say, okay, Mary, you're starting to creep up a little bit where you're looking for that external. Go inward and say, what have you been doing? And I have been listing, like we talked about, list all the things, right? But more than that, what have you really been doing? I have been building the most meaningful relationship with my kids. Like, I know if I was active duty right now, my 14-year-old would not be coming to me with the conversation she's coming.
Mhm.
And that to me is like, those are the things that draw me back and say, okay, when you feel like you're not doing enough, when you feel like you should be where that person is, stop it.
Yeah.
Look at what you're doing, look at your journey, look at your life, and then always remember that there is no destination. Like, there just is not. It doesn't exist. You can have a goal and you can hit it, but did you forget to pay attention to all the interesting things that happened along that journey to get to the goal? Like,
Yeah.
that is really what something I have to remind myself every single day, and I mean that every single day.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remind, yeah,
Yeah. I am the same. I'm the same way because, again, the schedule was compressed and there wasn't time to really sit and talk and, you know, like even literally, like, how was your day? And then listen for the response. It was
right,
like, hey, how was your day? And everybody's kind of like shuffling around and you got to two phones. If you had two phones, I had two phones,
yeah.
in my hand, trying to keep up with everything. And, after you retire and you create the space, and that's one of the things that I encourage people to do is when you're still on active duty or you're still in your career, plan for this space, where you stop and maybe for 4 months, maybe 6 months, however long you will need to reconnect, right? Because you have to reconnect with the relationships that you have that maybe weren't as strong or as enriching
Mhm.
because you were just going. You were going hard. And so having this space to find out who you are, you know, I had to figure out who Rochelle was again. I was like, wow, like this is going to be something because I don't even know. I mean, I do know, but I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that journey of identifying without the uniform, without, the positions, the titles, all that, that takes that takes a lot of work.
I feel like you read my book. I have a chapter that's called Separate Your Identity from the Military. And then the next one says take a break. So yes, 100%. That's exactly what we deserve
Yeah.
and what we owe our pre-service person.
Yeah.
We owe it to ourselves to try to figure that out. Who
Yeah.
are we,
Yeah.
and there's a section I say, make your list that's called take it, and then make one that says leave it. And there are so many things that you will take with you, and there are so many things that you should acknowledge that you're leaving behind.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. And I can't the loss of identity after service, even if you couldn't wait to get out. Like, you could be a 4-year enlistee, hated your military service, and you get out, and there's still a transition that you deserve to give yourself the time and space to figure out how to digest all that.
Yeah.
Just because you volunteered to get out after 4 years doesn't mean you don't deserve that time and space,
Exactly.
right? You could simultaneously be happy to be free and also want to dive into some of those other things,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, I mean, it's so complex, but I do believe what you're suggesting is what will help you in transition, set yourself up for the I don't say, if smoothest isn't even the right word, sort of the most purposeful, and like leaning into something you actually want to do after,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And now I'm like, I know for some of our viewers that are listening in that are still, serving, and this is not about, follow our same pathways, of going into this journey. Because if you want that second career, or if you want to, go on and travel, if you, whatever the case may be, but it's really figuring out who you are, and then taking this, making the right decisions for you to be and continue to be that person that you have rediscovered.
Yeah.
So this is all like deep learning, deep life journeying, and we absolutely can spend a whole lot of time talking about that too.
Yes.
So before we close out, Mary, give the audience, like lasting thoughts, some things that have on the forefront of your mind, or something that you speak to regularly, that you haven't shared already, that, some of our viewers may need some sense of encouragement, maybe perhaps, or inspiration or hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like all of us to look with an open mind and an open heart at what caring for yourself actually means, and the importance and the impact that that has on every aspect of your life. I was running today, and I've never liked the phrase work life balance, and I never knew why. I just it never resonated with me, work life balance, because that phrase is subliminally telling us to over prioritize 50% of something, of work, life. So the phrase is saying work is equally as important as living.
Mm-hmm.
And I, in my, as I'm running and thinking, I'm like, no, I need to flip that graphic on its head. It needs to be 50% self, and then a quadrant up here that is social or community, and then a quadrant over here that's professional or earning income. Right? Like, there's a disparity there, because think about what's the one thing in your life that has the most continuity. You.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the one person showing up when you celebrate, you hurt, you're crying, you're happy? You.
Mm-hmm.
It is you. You are the central focus of how everything else comes to play in your entire life. And while
Yeah.
you're here living and breathing, you are the most important thing, you know? And
Yeah.
so I want us to really dive into that self care notion of what do I do then to care for this person that is so very vital to my life? Because it's more than the things we generally hear about, massages or spa days, or journaling. Even it's more than that. It's boundaries, it's saying no, it's telling yourself every day that you're amazing, it's giving yourself grace, it's being your best advocate instead of your worst critic.
Mm-hmm.
This is why this is so important. So really, that's the one thing I want all of us to adopt, because it will change your entire life.
And you heard it here, y'all, on the Slay to Success talk show with Mary. So thank you so much, my sister from another mister, for being here with us today. If you join us live, thank you so much for staying here and for your comments. And we really appreciate you. If you come back for the replay, okay, put in hashtag replay so that we know that you came by and stopped in here. And listen, y'all, we will be back here next Sunday night. Oh, excuse me. The Sunday night after that. I will not be here next Sunday. All right. We will not be here on Sunday night because I will be out of town. So we will be coming back the following Sunday. I will make sure to put out the information. Dwayne left us with one more comment. We're more than conquerors through Christ. Thank you so much, Dwayne. And so if you had comments you wanted to share, put them in there. Keep on slaying, everyone, until you can't slay no more. Have a great evening. Have a great work week. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye bye.